My name is Jason Atkin. I work in the IAFF headquarters in DC in the Health and Safety Department. I'm a Health and Safety Assistant, and I do a lot with the coordinating for the PFT program. And we do have Courtney Bolton here with us as well. She's sitting up front here on my right, and she does a lot with, she also works in the office, Health and Safety Assistant, and she has a lot to do with the FGS program. So if you have any questions in the office, you can also call her. I think that one's not on yet. You just don't get to talk. No, just joking. No, but we'll just start off here and let the panel introduce themselves and let you guys know where they're from, and then we'll get started.
George Cruz, LA County Fire Department. Been involved with the peer fitness training program, i.e. also CPAT, for the last 11 years. I ran our wellness program at LA County for 6. Kevin Clark took it over from that point. Also master instructor for the FGS program. So that's who I am.
Melissa Kennedy, Seattle Fire. I work peer fitness trainer program for about the last 10 years, and now also helping out with the FGS program.
I'm Bill Bussing. I'm from Prince George's County, Maryland. I work in the risk management office as the wellness fitness coordinator. I manage all the PFTs that we have, the annual medical physicals, and we just instituted CPAT.
Kevin Clark, I run LA County Fire Department's wellness program right now. I'm currently an FGS and a peer fitness trainer instructor.
Hi, I'm Daryl Mendenhall, and I'm the only one up here besides Jason that's not a firefighter. I'm a peer fitness trainer instructor. I'm on the technical oversight committee. I got involved in the fire service about in 2000 through my affiliation with the Indianapolis Fire Department, and I've just had the nice pleasure of continuing to be involved with the IAFF and the peer fitness trainer program.
And I'm Ian Crosby. I'm with Calgary Fire. I'm the wellness coordinator with my department, and I'm one of the peer fitness trainer instructors, and I also help do CPAT for the department.
So just to get an idea before we start off with questions, we'd just like to know who's kind of in here for what, who's really in here more for fireground survival questions and then that new program, or possibly looking to have that program. How about peer fitness training questions, inquiries? We got 1, 2, 3, okay. And CPAT questions? Okay, so let's get started. Anybody want to pose any questions right off the bat? Go right ahead, up front. Yes, we would. Really appreciate it if you could step up to the microphone that's right next to the camera, since we are filmed, so we can hear your question.
Name is John Sparrow with Aurora, Colorado, Local 1290. Can anybody give me some insight on how you affect cultural change in the fire service when it comes to fitness, readiness, preparation? Because the way I view it, it's a cultural thing nationally that we need to kind of change within a house, change that culture. So has anybody had any success? I don't know in particular who I'd ask, but anybody have any insight on the cultural change you've been able to make at your departments?
One retirement at a time.
That's really a great answer.
I think we all have actually. I think it's all starting with kind of baby steps still. Part of it was implementing the program. Once the facets of the program were in place, that started to make a huge change within the culture. Providing on-duty workout time, things like that started to make a shift. Having peer trainers and access to them, and started to change, eating habits in the station. I mean, all those were, but going back to what Daryl said, there's certain people you won't change, possibly, right? That's just the nature of it. We'll complain if the ice cream's too cold, because that's the fastest thing to do, right? So understanding there's always going to be that, but the reality is as new people come in and as the programs evolve, they become topics like, a centerpiece of the symposium has been around things like peer fitness training, WFI, fireground survival, where 10 years ago those were just infancy. So it's changing. It's just not going to change overnight.
There's been social science research done on that, and I don't remember the details of it, but I
number was like about 7 years to really affect, cultural changes. That probably varies from culture to culture, how you really quantify the change, but it just takes time.
I think the other thing you guys need to look at is the fact that to get that cultural change, what shift has to come with your people. And for us in Seattle, the shift came when we instituted medicals after we had some line-of-duty deaths for cancer, and then we caught some things. We caught type 2 diabetes in its initial stages. We caught people that needed bypasses. Both those things are highly linked to our diet and our exercise. So when we can catch something medically and those people advocate for change, those tend to be your tenured, usually a little bit older firefighters that probably aren't working out or doing anything. And when they become your spokespeople for why we need to be looking at our diet, why we need to start exercising, that cultural shift comes there. So to get that medical piece in place, I see it as the very first thing you have to do. Because you can put all that fitness stuff out there and have the latest and greatest equipment, but if your people don't see a need for change, and every person in the fire department is there and thinks that they can do the job. Whether they can or not, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about our own personal perceptions. And so until we are kind of faced with looking at, when the guy next to me has a bypass, and I'm the same age, and I'm in the same demographic, and I look just like him, all of a sudden that could be me. And that's where that cultural shift at least came for us.
I think I would echo those statements. The medical is extremely important. I think another thing that we've seen extremely effective in LA County is we instituted our peer fitness trainers at the recruit level, establishing a really well-defined fitness program, and then we mentor them for a year after that in the field. And I think that for us, because we're hiring 100 people a year, over the course of 10 years, half our departments come through that program. And I think those things start to help too.
We started with basically nothing, and then just a small example is we instituted the annual medicals, and that started to have some effect. And we put some PFTs out there, and it's multifaceted. And then just recently, which fascinated me, we did CPAT. And what happened was that we got a lot of pushback from our membership because they thought that they were going to utilize CPAT as an incumbent testing tool too. And I said, no, that's not what it is. And what happened, the recruits were leaving the academy, and they were coming out into the field, and they were like rock solid, athletic, fitness, almost, freaks. And then they would come into the station, go to the station officer, and go, oh, okay, you're my officer, great. And the officer started like saying, man, Bill, these recruits, man, they want to go to the gym all the time, and it was influencing from those recruits coming in. And then our fire chief took the CPAT test, which is leadership, and that's a cultural shift at the top. And he challenged all of his colonels and all his majors to say, hey, look, show up when they're doing the orientation session and time practice run. I did it. Why don't you want to try it out? This is something we're going to be doing. So it's just little pieces of the stuff starts to put together.
Yes, next question. If you could use a microphone, please.
My name is Don Robert, Hanford Fire in Washington State. Our department is about 100 members. We have 4 fire stations, and we have a portion of Wellness Fitness Initiative in place. Medical is in place. We've had peer fitness trainers in the past, and we no longer have any. How many would you recommend for a department of that size, peer fitness trainers?
I would start with however your department is broken down by shift and or by a number of battalions or stations. If you only have...
Yeah, we have 4 battalions, 1 being day shift and the other 3 being 24.
So it'd be nice to have somebody for them to reference in there on their shift that they would know. So, but I think the biggest thing that I've seen, and I think these others could echo it as well, is that you need to have a plan to engage them. So there has to be, what we do is we do regular annual drills that they have to get, fitness-related drills, and they also get integrated with our new recruits. So they're mentoring those recruits, because if you don't give them something to do, they're going to quickly fall into the category that they're not using their skills, they're not going to be real comfortable, and it's going to be more difficult for them.
to that, like what Kevin said, one of the things you might want to ask or define is what you feel that your trainers will provide. What is the service you want from them? So if part of it is doing assessments, then you might have to base that on how many people you have, reasonably when those assessments occur and so forth. But if you're using them as mentoring in the station, and what other mechanisms you have, like an intranet, let's say, or tools that you can create that might make it easier, so you don't have to have a trainer on every station at every shift, of course, but you might be able to, if you could move people, possibly, like there might be one trainer for 5 stations, let's say, or 3 stations. It just depends on your demographics and so forth. But it's nice to have a trainer that, I mean, having them available whenever needed, and having your people understand what their rules and their capabilities are, so they understand how to use them. Going back to what Melissa said, a lot of us think we know how to train, or that we don't need a trainer because we train already. That doesn't mean that we're doing it right, or that we don't know that there's different approaches out there. So it's also, creating a plan, like Kevin said, so that you have some direction for your trainers and they're all on the same page. So it's kind of a tough question to answer because without knowing more details, but we could do that offline. We could sit down and maybe go in with your size. This might be recommended based on what your demand, what your needs are.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Question?
Yeah, I didn't know if the international had a stance for a test for return to work. You know how they kind of support CPAT for recruit testing. Is there something they do for a return to work for people who have been on the job who have maybe been off for an extended period of time due to an injury or something of that nature?
That's a great question. Whether it's industrial or non-industrial, right? Part of the job or off duty, let's say you broke your femur and now you're assigned light duty and you've been off 9 months. Our department, the IFF does not have anything in place right now, so let me just answer your question. Not that I know of, and anyone else can chime in. However, independent departments in Valley County Fire Department is working on a program right now. And there basically comes down to the medical physician, understanding what the job duties and responsibilities, the essential job tasks of a firefighter. And Valley County has that for each position within the county, and those are provided to the physician so that he or she can determine if that person's injury or ailment will preclude them from going back to full duty. So there has to be communication. All physicians need that because everyone has an array of physicians they deal with. And then when they do introduce back into the job functions and doing the job task, if there's an ailment that's prevalent, let's say somebody's not because they're hobbling along and they're not getting, then our department has a process where you can request for our occupational physician to go through a fitness for duty. So there is a process in place, but the IFF doesn't. We can share what our process is, but that would be a due diligence process where you let the physician that they treat with have an evaluation, determine it, and if it's questioned by the organization, that there's another level of process that they go through to make sure that person's cleared for duty.
Okay. Thank you.
There are several departments in Indiana that have performance evaluations for their incumbents. One department is the Indianapolis Fire Department, and Kim Robinson is the fitness coordinator for them, and they use those in conjunction with medical evaluations for return to work. So you could, maybe the two of you could talk even about how they utilize theirs.
Thank you.
Can I add even one other little thing, like if you currently have a training academy, do you train your own personnel for your department? I mean, do they have a crew division?
No, we're in the process of developing a health and wellness program, and that's one of the topics that we've had issue with the union and the administration kind of seeing differently on what return to work is and what it means. So I just wasn't sure if there was like an official stance of the IAFF.
Yeah, are you talking in terms of the medical piece or in terms of looking at job evaluation to see if you're ready to do a job task? I mean, there's
I guess I would say, both. And I guess I didn't know if there were different levels, because obviously the physical demands of a battalion chief are going to be,
And so we had that discussion, and we got kind of on that quite a bit yesterday about incoming testing, like Dale said. One approach you can do if you don't have something is what many departments do is in a recruit division, saying, you know, you're training a recruit to be ready for the fire service or a candidate or whatever you want to call it in your training academy. Looking at it, the same things. If you identify certain fundamental tasks based on their rank or position, using those people to then have whatever that looks like, to say you need to go for a week or a month or whatever, knowing those skills and going through them to see that you're proficient after you've been cleared medically, you know, that's been a common place for departments, but I don't believe we're ways from having something nationally or internationally.
Okay.
See, the problem is, and not to get too deep into it, is a medical clearance could be for psychological, right? It could be for some type of physical or illness that you have.
Right.
And so that needs to be considered by the physician. So once they're cleared, the difficult thing is they may be rusty. If they've been out for 3 years, then you may need a transitional program, so you reintroduce them slowly through it. All you're looking is for one medical clear to go back to duty, then it's the department's responsibility to transition them back. And we've even put somebody as the 5th person on an engine for X amount of time so they can develop their skills, but they don't hold the responsibilities. They're getting on-the-job training, they're back with the firehouse. So there's many ways of approaching it, but the clearance is medical, then we do the rest. So that we don't feel that they're ready to go yet, but we're not gonna hold them to life duty, and we're gonna transition them through a progression. So that's the best we can answer, right?
Sure.
And just to add one more little thing is what we did is we developed a check sheet with more than 90 days. If you go more than 90 days, they have to go through the academy they're at the academy, assigned to the academy for a week, and there's a series of checkoffs. Yeah, exactly. And then they have to just do a series of tasks to show that they're able to do it, and it increases their confidence level. And then there's also a screening to make sure that their annual medical is up to date. Their fit testing is up to date. All their, any kind of infectious, the hepatitis B shots or anything, we kind of go through all of that. So when they enter the field again, not from a medical standpoint, they're cleared. Then all these other things that to make us in compliance, they get checked off. And it's just a worksheet that they go off and they get it done in about a week.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
No, and that's the premise. You can go ahead and sit down if you want.
Okay.
That's the premise of the Wellness Fitness Initiative. Is we're not trying to put people off the job. We're trying to transition them, whatever their medical or situation is, back into full service. And so it's an important issue in return to work. Because return to work can happen at any time, whether we discovered their annual medical exam through a process that we took them, that there was an injury on the job, we still got to bring them return to work. And really it comes under the rehab. I would say it's the rehab portion of the WFI. Is how do we reintroduce them back into work? So it's something that we should explore, we just haven't ventured there, but it's the premise of the Wellness Fitness Initiative.
I'm Medic Firefighter Catherine Messy. I work for Hampton Fire and Rescue. I work on the floor, but I've also been their health and safety or health and wellness officer. And we've just recently got a new chief, and I brought up the subject of return to duty. We've had several women go out for maternity, and they were on light duty for at least several months before they actually came off the floor or went off and had their maternity leave kick in and they were at home. But my question is, his issue was we couldn't request a return to duty for those individuals because it would be an ADA issue because pregnancy is not considered an illness, and my thought was they were separated from their duties for 3 months or more. And that in itself would be enough to ask for some kind of return to duty, whether it was a medical clearance from their physician that saw them during their pregnancy or something that we could do. We do have a incumbent agility test, which is kind of on the rocks right now. We're having some issues implementing that within the division. But how would I explain to him that we need to address these issues for somebody who either has been pregnant, and you definitely go through some physical changes through a maternity and delivering a baby, and then we have individuals who have been separated from the job for 3 months or more because of light duty issues. So how would I address that with them?
Under FEHA, which is a Federal Employment Housing Authority or Act, it requires that any employee has the right to go to an employer and ask them for a reasonable accommodation. In other words, they could have an substance abuse problem, they could have pregnancy, whatever it is, they can request to have an interactive process, an interactive meeting. That's by law. And that interactive meeting, there's 6 steps to work through an interactive process. I can give you the website, and clearly it's federally mandated by law. it supersedes ADA. Everything that's in ADA, the FEHA is greater. So if you follow those guidelines by the employer, by law, you have to. And the first part is interactive. What can we do for you as an employee to bring you back to work? It may not be under a doctor's note. It may, I have these accommodations that I need, and the department accommodated. So there's reasonable accommodations, and when I give you that website, it'll walk you through the step-by-step sequence that a department should approach, or any employer should approach when it comes to ADA and FEHA on whatever the issues are. And it'll clearly state what those are. So it would help in pregnancy. That's where the FMLA program comes in, Family Medical Leave Act comes in. That's all under FEHA guidelines. So I'll give you that website, and it really educates you a lot.
What's your department policy on anybody being on 2 months?
Nothing. They come back. I mean, unless it is an on-duty injury, there's no way I can track them. I mean, there's no way I know that they've had an injury that would affect their job performance. So
how we deal with it is it doesn't matter. We don't know why you're off for Seattle either. Ours is 6 months. You're gone for 6 months. I don't care if you're off on family leave, you're on military leave. You took 6 months of unpaid leave. It doesn't matter. For us, if you're gone 6 months, we do a return to work.
and that's what my thing was. I figured if we implemented a more of a time frame instead of actually what was going on with you, we wouldn't have to worry about encroaching on anybody's rights or furlough.
You're right. We're going to single out one group, and only this group has to do a return to work. We need to finish all this stuff.
And you need to consider a time frame that, you know, doesn't get you trapped by holidays or something either, right? That it's realistic. So I mean, something like 6 months might be more appropriate because now, regardless of it, you're not going to get someone that might have had some taking time off, swaps and shifts, plus the holidays, or which would be fine, but maybe all of a sudden you're dealing with a larger number of people that it is contributing.
I think it's a big thing. Usually like from October on, we don't see guys for a long time.
Yeah. Dr. Winter off. That's okay.
And then too, there's an issue because I know a lot of doctors, when we request that people, because we have a form we make up that actually lists the 13 example tasks. So if somebody's seeing their own physician, they read this and they know exactly what this person has to come back to work and do. Before it was just, yeah, you're okay. They got, you know, I ride on the clinic all day, or I ride in the car all day. I don't want to go inside. They don't know exactly what they did before. So this gives them a better picture. But now doctors are charging $30, $40 a pop before they sign anything like that. So now it's an issue of who's going to pay for this? The division, because we're requesting that they have it.
You've got to have medical insurance through your department. That's what we do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a medical thing and we can't provide it, and because we provide insurance for them, we can provide it.
Something that George said yesterday that made a lot of sense, and I'm feeling this from you, is that when you said that you didn't have a policy, there was just no policy.
Well, I kind of made one, but the intern chief didn't want to do anything. He's going to have to go through like 30 SOPs that were sitting on our desk for 18 months. So hopefully, you know, something will kick in. We've tried to write something up and address those issues, and at least 1 or 2 of those policies.
And what I was getting to is that he made a really good point yesterday about, you know, a lot of this becomes so intertwined. You're talking about pregnancy, but then it relates to, you know, do you have a process for somebody coming back for substance abuse? Do you have a process for does this person need to file a claim for work? And all these little things. And I just started writing them and putting them on a shelf. And, you know, because I knew that we needed them, and I would submit them, and they would say, you know, it didn't go anywhere for a while. And then eventually, sure enough, something would happen. And then, you know, the union got involved. They said, well, we need a policy for this. And say, oh, you know, that was one that submitted, you know, and then, so those are the ways to get, you know, things done. Have them ready.
That process needs to be for industrial or non-industrial injuries. And this one, in this case, is a non-industrial. She was pregnant. And so that process has to be consistent for everyone that falls into that envelope. And there's federal laws that you have to look at to build your process. If you don't look at it, and labor code laws, you're going to get chewed up in the court of law. And so not all of us have that. So when we implement 90 days, I'll tell you right now, that's a hard line. Because if you look at the federal, there is no timeline. So that's why it behooves you, I don't know if you can refer to your own county council, but you need to look at the labor code. You need to look at what the laws out there. then once you know that, then you can build your program legally, and then you can work within those parameters. Oftentimes you don't, then it's a challenge.
Anybody else have a question?
Hi, Tom Perkins, Hanford Fire Department with Don there. And as he said, we already have a lot of the components of wellness fitness. We tried a peer fitness trainer program, probably 8 or 9 years ago, right at the early stages of wellness fitness. I was one of them actually then, and someone made a comment about giving them something to do. I think it was you. That's true. We kind of did a self-taught program. We had an industrial exercise person that came in and worked with us. It wasn't really geared towards the fire service, and they really didn't give us anything to do afterward, and there was no real certification or anything. So what I'd like to know is, can you give kind of an overview of, we're coming up on negotiations, say we get 1 or 2 peer fitness trainers approved per shift. What happens next? How do you become a peer fitness trainer? And what do what's generally the process for doing that?
Well, I'm going to pose that back to you because it's a labor management program, and you need to sit down with management as well as labor to figure out how we're going to select our candidates and what criteria we're going to use. It's going to be seniority based, education based, and where is it going to go? On top of that, that roadmap, how are we going to use them as ambassadors for our organization? Some of them are going to be very good and comfortable at speaking to the masses. Some are better at one-on-one training. Some are going to be in recruit training. Some are going to be in your workers' compensation. For instance, somebody suffers an injury and they see chiro and they need PT, but they only get approved for 6 visits, but they need more, so you attach your trainer to them to aid them through that process. So you really have to start thinking out of the box. If we could tell you through all our experiences what's the best way to do it, you have to keep them engaged. And we've been very successful in LA County, where we make them to teach the whole county. It's a 3 to 4 month program. And so each one of those trainers is responsible to show up on daily drill schedules and get engaged. It really helps them for those 3 to 4 months outside of the other responsibilities that they have.
So can you add one, so to what George is saying, the first piece before you have a trainer is having a coordinator. Having a designated person with vision, and you've got the blueprint of what you think they're going to need to do, define the job duties so that you attract people and they understand this is what the expectation is before they come on board, before they sign in. And then, and have a committee that establishes that so that they all know what they're getting into. And then with that, you follow this process of getting trainers that you feel are going to be best suited to serve this. And everybody's on the same page so that we keep all these trainers, moving in the same direction and pulling the ship in the right direction and not fighting each other because they're all, kind of doing different things. But with that, then the process of the courses change even with the certification that we have with the WFI PFT program. And it's going through revisions. You talk to someone that's taken it 2 years ago and it looks a lot different now, and it will look different in a year from now again. So what we keep trying to do is keep our trainers fresh and keeping them engaged and keeping them certified. And part of that certification process is trying to stay current. And I can let other people talk about our process.
I would just say, yeah, you got to make sure you know where you're going to plug them in and what you're going to do to keep them engaged, whether it's at recruit training, in the stations with regular drills, or your recruitment. There's a lot of ways that you can utilize them, but I think they both hit up the nail on the head. Is you have to have somebody who's steering the ship, who's got a grand plan that's going to say this is where we're going to use it. I know even with the best intentions, I think I can speak for everybody that you have probably a 20 to 30% attrition rate. That there is going to be changes in life and things that are going to come up that are going to make it so that they can't participate like they would. I know in our department we have a minimum activity. It's 5 drills a year. It's training 2, recruiting 2 mentors or mentoring 2 recruits. Those kinds of things. So they have to do those things in order to stay active. They have to attend the regular annual drills, mandatory drills. So some of these things is just a part of the requirement of being involved. So that's how we keep them engaged.
Are there any departments out there that have peer trainers in place that are utilizing them right now?
place, we're not utilizing them.
Yeah, but I mean, that's where a lot of the value is.
We don't have a lot of direction, I think that's what our problem is.
It's been the biggest problem with all of it. We certify all these people, and we don't do anything to keep them engaged, or we didn't have a plan to even, a lot of times we send people expecting they're going to come back and they'll just start running it. And they don't really know, because there still needs to be more information on top of that to how to use a trainer properly and what is it that we really want.
If you talk with other drills, if you have drills like fiber, what would that entail for?
What we do is we have an annual 3-hour drill that they go through. So part of our program requires that they participate in online training, but one of those training sessions is live that our PFTs provide. So we generate, the office, the wellness office generates that drill. That drill generally addresses cardiovascular fitness in the fire service, muscular strength, core stability, those kinds of issues. But we also at that time review our program and try to provide a promotional program for the other components of our wellness program. So one of the things that can make the program the most successful is by highlighting those folks that you've interacted with, that you've saved, per se.
So the drills are for the actual personnel on the floor, not for your peer fitness trainers?
The peer fitness trainers come in to get a trained trainer.
Okay.
So we train them on what they're going to deliver and how they're going to deliver it. We give them all the instructions, the PowerPoints, all the things they need, stability balls, whatever they need, and then they're required to deliver that to their folks.
And you have to consider keeping them certified, so you have to look at what's it going to take. It's not a one-time cost just to get that person. It's what's the ongoing cost, and where are the deficiencies in your program. For example, say they're struggling in program design, and that's where you want them, and they feel good enough after the course even to do that. So you need to recognize, well, we need to bring someone in, or we need to tap into the ones that we have that are strong there, and do an in-service and keep those trainers continuing to grow and advance and serve the department in the way it needs to be.
I know that the IFF is looking at that too, is assisting with this continuing education for our folks. And what we propose to them in the past, and something that they consider in the future, is utilizing those folks that have good programs that can come out and provide that continuing education for your folks. So they're getting something specific to the fire service that you can use to keep them engaged, keep them working. But you have to have some things that you're going to require them to do, or they're going to fall off the map within just a few months. It's been my experience.
We've been pretty fortunate. We'll put a cardiovascular training for firefighters together. So we talk about heart rates, we talk about exertion, rate of perceived exertion. We do that as a tool. Kevin's been very instrumental in going to Polar and getting very good watches inexpensively, so they could use that, because everyone has a treadmill in their station now. So we really educate them, and we go do that trainer, and then they go out and they talk about heart rates. This is what it is, it's climb the stairs. This is what it all means. Even to the point of talking about annual medicals. This is what you're going to expect at your annual medical. This is what the blood work is. Don't be scared. If something happens, this is what they're going to do for you. These are the resources. So you can use them in many facets as being your ambassadors, as just being creative. What are the topics that we need them to address to engage them? Because they need to be good public speakers. They got to be able to get out there and be that role that you would like them to be, especially in front of recruitment, all the way to your own. So the sky's the limit on using them. It's just developing the programs for them to go out there and execute.
And I would say that when you're selecting PFTs too, you want to try to get an array of people from different walks of life, different body fat levels, different ages, because different people are going to be attracting different people. You don't want a whole group of zealots that are out there doing their thing, and then everybody's going to get turned off. So you want to have people that can advocate your program.
Can you elaborate on exactly what your fitness trainers, what they are trained to deliver back to the department? Specifically?
Well, it's a 5. Go ahead. Well, it's 5 days.
Yeah, I mean, the course right now, are you asking what's in the curriculum? Like what's the...
Correct.
So
you don't tell so much from the website. How much of that is actually going to be used?
Well, I guess it depends again on what the role of your trainer is. I mean, some people use that trainer like they will sit, in recruit school. Some is proctors for CPAT, and some way to do community outreach, like Fire Fit Kids or something like that. So they're all, they may be different. So we teach it in a really broad scale, assuming you use it for all of that, plus doing assessments, plus doing, training of your own personnel on duty, in the station. So
physical training, like
actually physical training, hands-on, tactile training, where we're designing a program and having them go in and do exercises in the gym. and making changes to you know, diet tips and things that can, you know, start to change that culture so that they're starting to lead a healthier lifestyle. And recognizing also too, if people, that if you have someone that has an injury or something, that maybe they can identify the other resources and expertise where they can refer them out. You know, so they have their point of reference for the department as well, that they can identify all the different resources that you may also have in place.
No, I was just going to say, it's an entry-level personal trainer certification. Only it's broader than another personal trainer certification in that it addresses and educates firefighters about the overall aspects of the wellness fitness initiative, so that you can address that and move that.
And a lot of that 5-day program is designed around the basics. So we're going to give you the anatomy, physiology, the biology behind fitness and wellness. And you start from that ground and you build up to the point where you're writing programs, deciding what can you interact with, what you need to refer them, what you need to refer, basic nutrition, inflammation, flexibility. So it's trying to give you this broad scope, but it's a starting point.
One of the things that we've been trying to do, and there was a workshop today, one yesterday, was looking at movement. And we're trying to really make an impact. I mean, part of this program's goal is to make you do your job better. And part of that means you're not going to get injured or injured severely or frequently injured. That's what we like to see happen if we're doing it effectively. Certain things we can't help. You know, something falls on you and get injured. But with the training program that we're trying to develop is emphasizing really good fundamental movement and following a good progressive model, which is something we're changing a little bit with the curriculum as we're going right now. But it's a fairly comprehensive course, so they get all the study material before they take it. And it's not, if anyone hasn't taken it here or hasn't heard much about it, it's a difficult class. I mean, it's 5 days with an exam, 2.5-hour exam on the 5th day, but it's not an atypical, or maybe not typical for my department kind of class where you're not getting spoon-fed all the information. There's a lot of material you have to read before you start to take this class. There's a number of books that you get, and then a lot of it is, you know, there's a lecture component, there's some hands-on component, but, you know, the pass rate might be 70 to 80% of people, 75 to 80% will pass. So not everyone's guaranteed to pass this class. And they have to dedicate a lot of time. It's 8 to 5 every day. And actually some days it goes longer because they're spending time over lunch or staying late. So it can easily be 2 weeks, and it probably should be. It just, realistically, it's very difficult to get your personnel there and have them there for that amount of time. So even 5 days is difficult to ask for the active people to sit still for 5 days. But they have to do the reading beforehand. And with the course, as it keeps evolving, people look back and go, well, I have a study guide from 2 years ago, and it doesn't quite apply to today, and it won't apply in 6 months from now again. And so they have to be prepared to just put some work in. So you need people that really want to succeed in this and have a desire. And if they have a background, it may be helpful, but also they have to just, more important, have a willingness to dedicate themselves to the class.
And I would just say that, when Ian refers to that it's changed, and it's morphing from this to this, I mean, that's a reflection of the IFF's commitment to keep this certification programs on the cutting edge of this industry, and moving into better and better and refining and changing and trying to come to a point where it's the best, most practical, functional way that we can really address fitness in the fire service. So it's a good thing that it's changing. I mean, if anything, if you just build something, put it on the shelf, and this is it, and this is the way it's always going to be, it's from the day one, it's going to become more and more antiquated as new research comes out, new things that we learn, whatever the industry is talking about. So, not for people to get the wrong impression about we can't decide what to do. We're committed, the IFF is, to making this a better and better product, and it's a product that's not just keeping up, but in many ways leading. I mean, we're out there almost in many ways leading the new wave in some ways fitness is going.
My name is Georgie Athenry. I'm from Fredericksburg, Virginia. I'm the only peer fitness trainer for our department. I found the class and went to it, got my department to approve it, and they pretty much looked to me to run the whole thing. there is no other interest in it. I did get the department to do mandatory yearly physicals. The department bought everybody a gym membership. We don't have any room for a gym in our two departments. I work for a very small department, it's about 80 people. Half of our department, if not 2/3 of them, are getting ready to retire within the next 5 to 8 years. And the majority of them are against me 100%. Sometimes it's like beating my head into the wall. I did, been trying to do it non-punitive, as rewarding as I can. I do classes, probably a couple times a year, nutrition classes, exercise classes. When I'm in the gym, I try to talk to them and get them motivated, but it's horrible. I've got a lot of guys in our department that I just actually ordered everything from Lafayette Instrument a few months ago. So that should be in by the time I get back. And so this year we're going to start all the testing processes, which there's still word going around in our department about how awful it's going to be. What are some recommendations? First of all, how I can, it's a big load, it's a lot to take on. I want to be a complete WFI certified program, but just being me, it's a lot of work. It's still on top of my normal, on-shift duties. And keeping a track of all the records with the data. I would like to do the registry, but not sure if the WFI program, not being certified, you can have the registry. And then what are some other creative ways of trying to keep the motivation going? I bought some equipment for them to use in the gym, so they don't always have, or for them to use in the station, so they don't always have to go to the gym. But the older guys are so against it, the younger guys kind of follow, and trying to turn their attitude around has been really tough.
I have a question for you. You said you're Fredericksburg, Virginia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spotsylvania County?
No, the city of Fredericksburg.
Oh,
We're surrounded by Spotsylvania and Stafford. Spotsylvania and Stafford are very large departments. The city in and of itself has its own department.
And you said 8 people?
About 80 people. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Spotsylvania has more than that.
Oh yeah, much more.
Because we taught a class right in Fredericksburg. I think we're close to it.
I went to DC for mine.
Oh, okay.
First thing I would say is get some help.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you need a committee, one person, because you may have problems because they see you from a certain perspective. Maybe if you got somebody else, they would see it a little differently. Maybe if you got one of the older people that was more interested into it, they could preach it to be your approach shop.
Have you looked at the implementation chapter in the WFI?
Yeah, I'm trying to follow it pretty much verbatim and by protocol, and I've sent out some information asking, anybody that would
surveys.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we did the the regular surveys that you normally do, and then once we got going, I had been asking other people from other shifts if I'd have like a shift liaison or somebody that would be interested. And I don't have any interest. Nobody's interested in actually becoming a peer fitness trainer, but just for some help and
Adam, I'm sure you have it, but this comes from the top down. Your endeavors are because it's been paved the way by labor management. So your fire chief has to put somebody in charge of it, like a coordinator, whether you're going to be it or somebody else to champion this. And it's going to take a team of people. It can't rely solely on you. I mean, you're pushing the ball, and it sounds like you make great strides, but somebody in your department, somebody's got to be willing to help. And it's got to be from the fire chief and union president advocating that.
But you should, on the upside, you've got turnover coming, so you'll have a new, new breed, a new generation.
Great options.
And you can seize that. You got to build on success. So try to figure out what things may be working for you. For example, there are a lot of cost-effective things you could do to get a little bit of buy-in and get some win. Like maybe getting a few things, prizes or whatever, that you can look at the corporate world and say, is there a way you can get some sponsorship help? Like what we did is, and not just throwing some, there's another thing we can sit and talk about, but for example, we did first aid CPR certification, so one of the hotels, and for their staff, using the department, and then we got free stay vouchers, and then we use those as prizes if you participate, and so you develop a circuit program or some kind of training program. You challenge a station versus a station, get a number of participants, and then the chief throws in a tour of duty off or whatever, and they win something that's meaningful. You're giving these extrinsic rewards, trying to dangle this carrot, get a little bit more buy-in, and then slowly find another thing that might work, and then pick up a few advocacies, with some wins there, that maybe you got somebody that's got an idea about hey, if we set this up using some tools that we have, ladders and other things, we can set up a circuit training program. And these aren't going to be sustainable over time forever doing the same thing, but they're just little things that you're chipping away and figuring out, okay, if this is working, let's try this next. And not to beat your head against the wall and be frustrated with, not seeing it change, but even the fact that you are that person was better than we were, before you were in place. And that you see new people coming in, and that you have some young people that seem to be, or newer or whatever, that are attracted to, that are at least open to it, is still a win. So it's looking at it in the fire scale. It's not going to change overnight, and talking to us, there's the additional resources on the IFS website that if you go on there, you can look, and they have all our contact information as well as other departments outside the WFI cities, or the 10 task force cities that have resources that are put up there. You can call us for some ideas, and things that maybe we didn't do, but I heard another department did, that might be reasonable for you to try.
Are you getting supported by, is the chief supported?
They do. They support me. They pretty much will, whatever the budget allows, like coming here, which blew us away. But still, they don't want to do anything. They just.
So if you're willing to step up and send you here, maybe the conversation you need to have, or if you can get somebody above you to advocate for you, is how about getting the fire chief to come out and participate in an exercise class with the guys? Because you've got the bottom pushing up, you need the top pushing down.
The captains, the battalion chiefs, those people.
Yeah.
Do you have regular exercise time today?
Yeah, I mean that actually is mandatory, and it's a very fine line between how many things you make mandatory to how many guys you piss off. So we are now getting people to go to the gym, only they're grumbling all the way there, but at least, through the baby steps, they walk in, they sit.
They're going to sit in front of the TV. I mean, that's
right.
It, right? So,
yep.
Yeah, I think Ian's hit the nail on the head as far as you've got a great opportunity coming up with this changeover. And if you can use some of your younger folks to help you with the recruit training, change the culture in your recruit training, you can start to change the culture of the whole department.
And if you remember, firefighters are going to drive without anything.
Whoa.
That's clarification, right? But in a lot of respects, it's changing the fire service is not much different than a parent dealing with a child and saying, this is the way it's going to be. Well, the child's going to test the rule, then they're going to object, they're going to throw a fit, stomp, and cry, and then after they find out that that's the way it is, they'll get up and they'll be okay. And I had a health and safety chief one time that I was presenting with their conference, and he talked about what his firefighters went through when they were implementing a new program, and he described the stages of grief. And he said the first thing that happened is they all started denying it. They said, well, they can't do this, they're not going to do this, there's no way, they can't get away with this, the union won't let it happen, this and that. Well, the union president and the fire chief were the first two that were out there in front with them saying, this is what we're going to do. And then after that, they realized what was going to happen, they went through kind of the anger phase. And after that, that didn't work. They thought, well, let's try to negotiate. We'll try to have, see if we can't make it more to what we think is more acceptable. And then finally, there was sort of that grief aspect and then acceptance. And it took about a year, but after they all got through it, there was sort of a sigh of relief that, hey, it didn't kill us, nobody lost their job, this and that, what's so bad. And now it has become just a part of their annual routine. And you're kind of going through that too. You just need to have tough skin, and having that top-down support is going to be real critical.
We actually just caught a guy having a heart attack the other day from it. So, I mean, the department sees it and just trying to get the guys to see it.
And that's the thing. They'll capitalize on that too. Maybe that person will now be a spokesperson.
He was actually the one that braided me up one side down the other and tore up my body analysis and threw it in the trash in front of me. And then
that's the guy that
had a heart
go
attack.
out here and now say, I was a naysayer,
right.
and now I'm a believer. Yeah. That's the biggest thing that's made a difference in all of our departments. I think if you can post your child, the people that see a change, they get caught at their wellness exam, and they get something, they can be your biggest advocates.
I tell you what, if you took away those gym memberships, you see how many people start crying.
You give them anything to take away.
Because now they go, oh, that's our right now.
Right.
So how
long have you been doing it?
About a year and a half.
Okay, you're kind of still in that infancy stage. Just the biggest thing I can tell you is don't give up.
That's why you need help.
Give up. That's why you need help. Don't give up.
You need help spread the load.
Yeah, don't call us, but don't give up.
We'll see you next year.
You should be networking with dark departments around you as well.
Yeah, those bigger departments around you.
Can I make a suggestion? I know with my department it was really hard because I became the poster child for everything that they hated about doing this. And they would see my email, they name them, they just delete it. So I had to get kind of creative about sending stuff up. So one time I put firefighter porn. And everybody opened that one. Basically, it was the 10 worst hamburgers in the United States, you know, and it gave the calories and what was it. But sometimes you just kind of have to put stuff out there or get somebody else to send it out for you so that they don't realize it's coming from you.
Yeah, I would just give you support and say, this is the absolute most difficult time.
Yeah.
Just getting started, and after a while, when you get some success, people are going to start coming to you, even those people that might have been kind of quiet and everything. And this is the time that you really got to kind of regroup, like the guys are saying, get some support around you, and just all ahead forward. Because everybody will come around. And you got to tell your members, remember, this is yours.
And when you get tired in 3 to 4 years, you need to have somebody to replace you.
Yeah.
You need to be mentoring somebody now that can take over that lead role later.
And don't give up on your people, they might surprise you. So, like, we had one that, I fought this guy through his career, and then he retired. We do medicals on our retired people. He wouldn't even want to, he did the very basic thing, and after he retired, we caught him with something. And then, and I, you know, I'm going, I don't even want to see this guy here, he's not part of the department anymore, he's killing me. But we bring him in, and now he's this champion for his program. He wants to talk to the active members, and he's this retired guy that's totally done about face. But you know what? It's got buy-in from some of the really senior guys that said, "Wow, that could be me, and I should have." You know, this guy was so outspoken against it, and then when they turn around like that, you can't buy that kind of hopelessness. So, yeah.
Anybody else? Any questions?
I'm Rick Seegers from Orange County Fire Rescue in Central Florida. When I came to Redmond back in 2001 the first time, they were talking about some data collection software they're going to supply before the year.
They're still talking.
And then when I went to the wellness symposiums in Phoenix, they still talked about it. And I went out to the wild, and I've just come back into the safety and wellness chief position, so I'm assuming that that's still not going to happen. Thought I was ignorant, didn't you?
It's more, Jim was here, Jim Brinkley was here the other day, yesterday, talking about that it's morphed a bit, but the bottom line is they are working on a repository. They have had some stumbling blocks, but they're getting to the point where they're going to be able to start collecting. They have 2 departments that they're collecting data from into the repository to do studies.
Okay.
And they are going to get to the point where they're going to be able to start to import other data. They do have a data dictionary.
Right.
So they have basic steps. It's just not this turnkey.
Because they ended up purchasing, they suggested back in the old days, a guy from Texas, I think, was selling a very expensive database for, and then I ended up I went to Phoenix, a guy happened to be working for Phoenix, sold me, and I think they went out of business, Advanced Fire Information Systems. It's a good database, but if this crashes, I don't know where I'm going to go from there, because that's where 10 years worth of my evaluations are stored into. So.
Are you talking about the medical evaluations?
No, I'm talking about the fitness eval evaluations.
There's a lot of software, good software, or you can use Excel and Access databases, but there are some commercial software programs that have all the wellness fitness initiative protocols in them.
Oh, there is?
The latest protocols. Yeah, I could give you some websites.
Yeah, I'd like to get those when you get a chance.
Can I throw, so I gotta throw one thing at the Bill King that even caught more grief. In some ways, we're looking at de-emphasizing those a little bit. And only because, as much as it's important to have, I mean, it's nice to have fitness data, and it's nice to see for yourself, and for yourself. But at the end of the day, I mean, if I did 25 push-ups and you did 28, I mean, are we going to design really that much different of a program based just on that, or how much your leg, arm got it longer, or even a VO2? For a lot of people, it's a nice score, but you kind of go on, what do I do with this now? And so I guess it's not to say it's not important, but it's nice to, like, again, some people want to compare themselves to it, they have it, but what we're doing with the shift in the class, one of the thoughts are, we're kind of, looking at things that we've been ignoring that have really maybe hurt us, and that you can increase someone's VO2 or you can increase their arm strength, but did they actually produce any injury, or did they see better performance? And, we realized that was an area we just jumped over, we didn't spend enough time on. We didn't have a chapter on program design in the book.
Right. So are you saying that you're gonna phase out I mean, because this is important to me, because we've been doing this for 10 years, and what we've been telling them is, this is your baseline, you should follow this throughout your career.
Yeah, not phasing it out. I'm just saying that because the emphasis may not be as strong on it, and maybe in the end of the day, what we were saying yesterday, and I think this is the telltale sign would be the ability to do your job. Like whatever that task is, would be the test. And the push-ups or any fitness test is a measure of aerobic capacity or muscular endurance. But it may not directly correlate to the task. And really, for me, or some of us, it's been, if you can't make this person better at doing that task, right, then we're still a little off the mark. And that's
we used to do the fitness evals every year religiously, because that's what the Wellness Fitness Initiative wanted us to do. Yeah. Now what we do is, because we don't want to cram too much stuff down their throats, because we do a lot, but we do the fitness evaluations one year, and I guess the controversial incumbent the incumbent physical ability test the second year. So that gives them a baseline of doing some structured kind of exercising, and they get that sheet, and then the next year they can see, because they're task related, it's a kind of watered down version of the CPAT test, which is certified. So, we hold them accountable for that kind of stuff.
Well, what about spending that time, like one thought, I'm just spending the same time you do the evaluation here on coaching and movement and looking at certain
We would love to do that if you've got a program for, the workshop I just went in was awesome. We're going to get those books. Back injuries like in our department is probably like every department. We're getting ready to do a Fit to Survive, and this is the first time training's actually invited wellness to be part of that. And they want us to develop a pod, and we're going to go in that area, injury prevention, but we need something to follow. We need a structured design. We can go out and try to make one ourselves, but we always look to the international for, we like to stay pure to the program. There's people trying to drag us away from it, get away from the pure fitness trainers. They want us to go to some tactical training classes, but we're trying to stay pure because it's been good to us. We've reduced our costs. We've done a lot of good things with it, yeah. And we just look for guidance. And
I would caution you though on some of these notes to not stop collecting data.
Well, we're not.
The biggest thing that I would tell anybody that's getting ready to start a program is to collect data as soon as possible, because at some point you're going to have to show the change in your people, the cost savings, all those things. You want to be tracking injuries. You want to be tracking.
Well, I can tell you where it's helped is another department that we did the fitness evaluations for. One of their guys had a heart attack and died, and the magistrate was asking for that information so they could get the spouse benefits. So the data collection, I think, is important for us to keep doing. And again, although the fitness evaluations are not supposed to be competitive, our firefighters are competitive, and we don't give the information to anybody, but I can tell you after we do the things, they're going, my grip strength is better than your grip strength,
and that's part of the problem, is that that's part of the struggle with the IFF, is that they want to produce these, or we want them as, norms, and use it as a norm to give us some sort of guidance as to that I score above average, below average, can I work on it? But then a lot of times it gets used as a standard and says, well, if you don't have this many push-ups, then you're not hireable, or you're not.
Right, yeah, that's not how we use it. We did ask, right when we started doing our fitness evaluations, again, we called a bunch of departments and asked, we don't want any names, we just want some numbers so we can post them on our wall, and gives people, some motivation to do that. And some people, said it's not a competition, but in Orange County, not everybody gets a ribbon. We want the guys to be able to, compete and do better. And I think that's how you motivate them and show them some other departments. So we got the ones with the better scores than us, and it's actually made guys try harder, because you guys have probably done all fitness evaluations throughout the year. Some people get mundane, they just go in there and they do the little as they can, and we want them to excel and do better. So, but you answered my question, I appreciate that, and we'll keep using our own software.
Anybody else?
Yeah, what's the general consensus on making the program quote unquote mandatory?
One more time.
Mandatory, making the program mandatory. Opinions, general consensus on that?
What part of the program? It is mandatory, non-community.
I'm sorry?
What part of the program are you talking about?
Just the program, implementation of the program as a general rule. We're, my co-worker Andy said earlier, we're kind of in the developing stages of, wellness programs in my department. mandatory participation in a wellness program it's a dirty word. I mean, that's what really turns off a lot of the members, especially the older members, stuff like that. You know, what I guess my question is, you know, what have other people done in relationship to that to show people that it's not a punitive thing, or you know, that's not going to come back and you know, bite them in the butt.
It's got to be a labor management agreement between the two of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the union and the fire chief, union president, fire chief, and then you're going to start to create some policies that are going to dictate that they exercise every day. You're going to start to create policies that are going to dictate that they have an annual medical, but then it's going to be up to your wellness folks to make sure that they protect those folks so that the perception isn't seen as punitive. Sometimes people will say it's punitive if you take them off the job because they're going to 90% blockage or they got chest pain.
Right.
Is that really punitive, or is that a safety issue?
Well, in my opinion, it's not
Yeah.
punitive,
Well,
but in their opinion, it's a little bit different.
That's the thing that we need to tell to our folks out there is that we're not taking you off the job as a punitive. We're taking you off the job because it's a safety issue. As soon as we get you back, you're going back.
And an important distinction there is that in a case like that scenario, that's not the department taking that person off the job anyway. That's a medical doctor.
Mm-hmm. And our goal is to get you back as soon as possible. So we're trying to correct whatever that issue is. But the focus should be on, it's not a witch hunt to find, you know, issues. It's they're trying to promote health. We're not, that's part of the reason there's no standard in the fitness evaluations, because we're not saying that if you do so many, you know, so many pounds on an arm dynamometer that you can't or not do certain tasks. We're not trying to relate them to a certain job, specific tasks. So we're just trying to say, this is where you are now. How can we make it better or maintain this? And wherever you are, let's see if we can make it, you know, you getting more engaged. So if you don't have mandatory participation, it's difficult to, you know, invest this money in a program. I mean, a fire chief wants accountability, and administration or the union will want, the executive want protection. So they kind of may approach it from two different sides, but understand that in order to reduce injury and all of the benefits that see or work on, you have to have people participate. So if they don't participate, you know, you can't show that return, and therefore you're not going to keep funding. So you have to have them engaged and understand. So you have to sell it to your membership why they have to participate. And then how we protect you, though, if you participate, you're not going to lose your job, you're not going to lose your pay. We're trying to enhance your life and promote wellness. You know.
And just strategically, you know, if as you're implementing that program, you can get your chief, union president, your leadership out there in front, going through it to begin with, in the beginning. So the first one's going through it. It's going to make it harder for the others to argue that, you know, because those guys are out there being examples rather than exemptions, you know, and it's going to help set the stage and make it more palatable.
And building on that, who determines what is considered, you know, participation? You know, how do you guys define that?
Well, it's defined really by the...
I mean, if someone gets an annual physical, have they participated in that, or?
I think what you want to try to do is sell it to your people as a benefit and not as a punitive. And that's, I think, the difference when you say, can't we make it mandatory? But if you instead said, hey, look, we're going to give you guys the opportunity to exercise on duty, and you're going to be able to go to the gym. That's sold and that now as a benefit. Right?
But providing them with the opportunity isn't the same as saying,
but if you provide them the opportunity and the company officers are mandated to take them, and they're mandated to do it, you know, again, it's all the way you're going to sell it. You gotta try to sell it right.
Sure.
You're right. Any firefighter out there, if we go out there and cram down their throat and say, this is what you're going to do every day, and you may want to run every day and not do any strength training, and the guy next to you only wants to lift weights, doesn't want to do any cardio, you know. So if you cram one thing down one guy's throat, then somebody's going to be upset. But instead, if you start to build your program where you're delivering this message so that they see what a comprehensive fitness and wellness program looks like, they start to see the advantages of being more well-rounded, more of a functional athlete.
You know, I understand there's a lot of benefit to it, and I think a lot of the department does. One of the issues that we run into, I mean, our administration is, and I'm sure a lot of them are, you know, it's almost like a competition between the administration and the union, and you know, whatever the union says is a good idea, the administration is going to fight it. Whatever the administration says is a good idea, the union is going to fight it. And so we came, you know, we went to them, we said, hey, we want come up with a wellness program. You know, we want to follow the WFI. We want to do this. They've already laid the groundwork. You know, why reinvent the wheel? Blah 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 blah. And they came back to us and said that I work for an Ohio Fire Department just outside of Columbus. They came back to us and said Ohio Revised Code says that, you know, we're able to mandate that you guys work out on duty and that you guys, you know, specifically do this and blah blah blah. And you know that the guys aren't going for that. And the guys are saying, well, you know, we don't want them telling us what we can and can't do on duty. You know,
even when they say work out, I mean, they're not saying you have an intensity level you have to meet. So if I decide I'm going in and I'm stretching, that's part. I mean, how much are we splitting hairs here? I mean, really, what you're trying to do is just get your people engaged. That's the first step.
Right.
From that, so you have to, in fact, you know, like Kevin said, it's trying to make a positive spin on this and saying, hey, you're getting free workout. You're a professional athlete right now. You're getting paid to work out. So we're gonna hold accountability to the department and say we're gonna provide some facilities for you that are gonna be adequate for you, or provide memberships to a gym or access to a gym or something. And then we're gonna set up some programs that, you know, maybe something that'll appeal to you that you'll do on this time. So you're getting paid to do this. They're blocking this time off for you to do this. And try to, you know, find something that'll entice them so they go, I don't feel intimidated. I'm not being forced to run if I'm not a runner or whatever. To start with, you can just start with something, you know, to get people to be in there, starting something.
Well, I think you need to remember that it's the IFF, it's what's right across your hat that has developed this program, is disseminating it, promoting it, is backing it 100%. They're the ones who have said from the international, this is a mandatory program. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean, and then leverage that and get your local to stand up and support that also and say, this is a union program. Do you think that the union's going to support a program that's going to come out here and begin to, you know, pound our people on the head and make it punitive? I mean, that's where it has come from. You know, leverage the credibility the union has.
But I'll tell you, local politics will outweigh bigger global. And so your challenges are really, how are you going to get administration and labor working together? That's where your challenge is. And a mandatory program, technically it's mandatory, the administration offers it. The mandatory participation is they're going to enforce it and labor's not going to buck it. Right? Basically that's it. So if a captain takes somebody to task if they didn't go to the wellness exam, not because what was discovered in the wellness exam, they didn't go to the wellness exam, what kind of discipline?
yeah, how do you enforce it if it's non-punitive? That's the big question, I think.
So what happens is if they're embracing this program and they say, in the event that nobody participates, what then? How are we going to take care of it? And unions got to be support and management. That's where it's at. However, if you go and you participate, whatever it is, we're good with it. But when you don't, is when we're both going to come down and say we support the discipline. And so whatever that is, that's got to be agreed by labor and management. Are you going to put them to life duty? Are you going to put them on probation? What are you going to do? Once you foster that, then you can enforce a mandatory program because everyone knows the consequences. And there's nowhere for that employee to go, barring federal laws, right? But there's nowhere that employee to go. Once you have that endorsement, then you'll be able to implement a mandatory. Non-punitive is not so much because you didn't go over the country, because when you did go, when you did participate, we didn't try to get you off the job. The other kind of discipline is we're not getting you off the job, we're just disciplining you. So you have to separate the two, and that's where labor management comes into play.
So do you guys recommend like the implementation of like a, well again, we're kind of working towards the return to work policy or you know, like a light duty policy or something like that before you try to implement a mandatory fitness program?
I think the level of progression. If a person doesn't participate, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's it? And ultimately, hitting them in the pocketbook is very heavy, and that's where the union's going to say, we hate doing that. So it would be a progression of steps where you would take an employee to really discipline them so that they do go to participation.
You're going to need some sort of steering committee where you have a union representative and management representative in the room, where you can start to talk about, if we do this and they don't comply, then what?
Right. And it can't be a hollow threat. I mean, if the chief, for example, says that if you don't participate, we're going to pull you to understand what that number looks like and how they can do that, or if the first time someone doesn't do that and they don't pull them from duty, they're never gonna do it. So, and that's the discussion between labor and management, so that they understand.
But if they ever have that decision agreed, then they're both lock and load. That means they support a complete wellness program, because to go to that measure, that means you're building a program where they don't go, but those that they're building a program for everyone to go, but if they don't participate, we're going to ensure that they do. Now you've got them. And labor management is embracing this completely. And it sounds like you have other challenges that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, doing that.
So I think what all of us can tell you to do is take whatever you can get.
Right.
Start somewhere, the baby steps. There's a lot of facets that we've talked about here that you can do, but ultimately you need to get labor, your union president, and the union to agree with management that you're going to adopt the program, and you're going to start taking steps towards mandatory non-punitive programs.
And that goes back to where you were trying to get support. I mean, that's the same thing. That's the type of support you need, where they draw a line in the sand. And what that line is, I don't know. It's morphous, progressive steps, whatever it is. But somebody's got to lay it down.
Was initiated by our union because we set up a biggest loser contest, and there was a huge reward at the end. And that's actually how we got everybody on to begin with, even if it was just a little bit of a.
Well, it's the same with ours.
For everybody. The character management is reduce workers' comp costs, reduce injuries. The character for the union is either a bonus or opportunity to work out on duty or opportunity to go to the gym, those kinds of things.
Well, the other opportunity piece is if you're in a position where management is going to mandate something for your membership, is it not better as the membership to come up with a program, something that has been developed on the labor side? Because if you don't accept the WFI and they're saying we're going to make you do this, they now have control of what your program's going to be. So I mean, that's your other way of selling it to your membership is if you guys don't. Yeah, it's
Well, it's kind of the problem is that, they want control of, what we do and what we don't do, as opposed to saying, okay, we'll go with the WFI.
We probably remind management on their side is the WFI has been agreed on by the fire chiefs. This isn't just a labor program, so if you guys are buying into this, the chiefs have already bought in. They're saying this is what is best for fire departments as a whole, as that group of fire chiefs.
And there's some other things that perhaps you can leverage, the fact that, essentially the entire WFI is now embedded into the NFPA standards. So there's another angle that you can take. This is standard in the industry. The accepted standard when it comes to wellness, fitness, and medical programs.
And there's no standard like, so back to the fitness. If you're doing the fitness assessments, there's no standards. So you get on a treadmill and you go on for 2 minutes and then step off. You might be wasting everyone's time, but the reality is, okay, that's good.
There's no way for someone to fail a fitness assessment.
Because there's no such failure. There is no failure. The fitness assessments were just a point in time at this moment when you did an assessment where you were at. If you better next year, good for you. If you don't, whatever. There was no standard attached to them. They were just a way of encouraging you, hopefully, that you would be motivated by it. But the reality is, it's trying to get you engaged, participate, and be active, and try to find ways to do it. If we point a gun to your head, you might feel threatened enough to do this, but you're probably not going to do it while that gun's not pointed at your head. And the reality is, if we're going to impact change, we're going to do more than just at work. We're hoping you'll embrace this a little bit and start to become part of your lifestyle away from work, at home and your personal life. So the only way to really do that is get you to buy into. So the threat you with something you feel, you're just going to push back and find you'll do whatever you have to just to do it, but not because you want it for any other reason. So that's why they realize that you have to, it's not about forcing you for the sake of forcing you. That's not going to work.
Gotcha.
My union president was here yesterday, and he didn't speak for the first time that I haven't seen him speak. So I don't know how long. But he described it as CPAT. Bill Bussing that was here talked about the tremendous impact the CPAT has done through him. And yesterday there were other people sharing about the CPAT. And the way that my union president came up after and tried to describe it is, you know what, it's a piece of clay. I mean, when we get people coming through, before it wasn't clay, you didn't even know what shape, what was coming through the doors, and now the IFF is taking the lead on standardized physical ability tests, and now you have a clay. And once everyone has a clay in their department, now they've got a mold. And the Wellness Fitness Initiative is designed to take those
steps to mold somebody and changing them, changing the culture. And it's never, and he was really shocked at the amount of incumbent testing conversation, because the WFI doesn't even go anywhere near it. And the reason is we're spending all this effort on trying to change somebody. It's supposed to be positive, it's supposed to be encouraging, and never get down the road of isolating somebody and then threatening them possibly with that isolation into eliminating their job. Even just touching that road was never in the language of the WFI. Never. And so he's going, why is there so much emphasis on that? Why isn't there constant education, constant promotion on this is where we're going and this is what's going to happen, and through time it'll be standardized just like SCBA's are. We just got to be patient. We just have to be patient as opposed to drawing a line in the sand. And then that's the approach. And so even though it's not mandatory, we have 70, 80, 90% through time, it'll get there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Question? Okay, well, we are you guys want to add anything? That could potentially help with anybody looking for a program? Anybody in the audience, you're welcome to speak on something.
I had a question, observation. I when I first got my position in health and wellness, biggest thing with our guys was they didn't need the programs to sit up, push ups, and all that stuff. It wasn't relevant. She didn't want to do that. She was there. Scratch. And we ended up getting a test made for our department, and it was based on a task. Fortunately, there was a time attached with it, which really kind of set everybody up in arm. But actually, that wasn't even what I was going to talk about. We came up with stats. I mean, we get stats on push-ups, sit-ups, cardiovascular, and everything. And that, like, it didn't really mean a whole bunch of people. So what I tried to do, and what I actually did was, metabolics and it was like 5 measurable that you can use. So I got that, and I went through everybody's, because I have, which I know most departments, I have access to everybody's medical file, because I am also an infectious control officer. So I get that information. But I made a graph. From the time they came on the department with their blood pressures, everything else, their weight, from the time they came in to the time that they, present time. And a lot of people were surprised to see how much their medical stats had changed. And I tried to use that as an emphasis for, we can make these look better if you start exercising or anyway. So maybe we should try and, I'm not saying that your department's going to be able to do it, but whoever does your medicals may be able to supply that information to your personnel. And in conjunction with your start programs, so if you start now here, you've been working out for so long, and now we've seen this improvement in your medical time.
Well, I would even suggest that as a consumer, which you all are, you're contracting some of private medical services, I think it should be an expectation that they provide you with that data. That's very valuable feedback. I mean, it's aggregated, anonymous, but it gives, the department a good idea of where they are. And, in health, I tell firefighters this all the time. Many times, where you're at is not as important as the direction in which you're traveling. And with the fire service, it is such a stable occupation. It's a great occupation to do longitudinal study on, if you will, because they get in the fire service, they stay there till they retire or die. And so to be able to watch how their health status changes and migrate, I think can be very valuable and motivating at some point. But then realizing, hey, I'm 40, and this is what I was when I was 20. Nothing changed overnight, but I need to change the rudder a little bit, get going in the other direction.
There was a lot of consistency in things elevating. I mean, we had young guys coming in, 19, 20 years old, and their lipid panel within 3 years. Because right now we're at like 3, 2, and 1. We're getting ready to go to annual physicals. they're going to be a little bit abbreviated between that time frame, but we are going to start seeing everybody every year. And for me, that's more important than them getting a stress test every 3 years, every 2 years, every 1 year. If we're getting to see them every year, that contact is going to give us more information than waiting up to 3 years.
And the other thing you have, I mean, aside from that as well, like cardiovascular, I mean, that's a huge piece for sure. But you also have a number of people out there that are walking, that have musculoskeletal injuries, that are at work, partly because we're an occupation you don't want to go light duty. And if you're on light duty, you want to do everything you get off light duty. So it's not like other occupations where they're avoiding it. They're actually trying to get back, probably when they're not. And they've accepted their, whatever the issue is. And that's the piece that we're also trying to make sure, it shouldn't be that you should just go, well, either my back is in pain all the time, my shoulder's always bugging me, and I can't do all this stuff. We have to find a way we can make it better. And that's a piece we just don't ask. We don't even go when you have a problem. And
we actually have issues with Italian chiefs. I had them hiding people when they were getting ready to do agility tests. They would hide them. No, he's not going to go today.
That's good BC right there.
I'm thinking, okay, it's okay for him to be in a fire truck somewhere, like maybe Station 5. Okay, chances are he's probably not going to get a call that day. But he's hurting. We're not going to address that issue. We're going to hide him.
Yeah. Well, that's the same as whenever we were doing, like, say, the leg down in Ottawa, we had a number of people in Ottawa that their back isn't good. I like when you're on full duty. I'm not asking you to do the test, but you just identify that you have a problem when you're out of work. We need to manage this because you may have to live with somebody 10 minutes from now when you're outside of here. So,
we stopped doing blood pressures because the fact that the Italian chiefs, we were getting people with blood pressures of diastolic over 100. Well, okay, you can't do the agility test today. Go back to the station.
Yeah, that's right. We can't do the fitness assessment, but we're not going to even take this information before we do the live fire.
So we just stopped doing the blood pressures. So, I mean, I guess the ignorance was bliss at that point. And the biggest thing for our guys is the battalions that I understand where they come from, because staffing is so bad right now, they can't afford to send anybody home. It's all they can do to fill all the spots when people come into work. I mean, we're hiring WAEs to help cover spots.
You don't have to pull them off duty. We're not saying that. You can work with them while they're on duty.
Right, that's the key. It's, you need to have a monitoring system in place that you've identified. They continue to work, but they're under the care of a physician to slowly change this.
Yeah, whatever the issue is.
That's where you need a monitoring system like that in place, but governed by a physician. Are you an RN?
No, paramedic.
Paramedic. Yeah, you have a lot of responsibility on all those medical records.
I know, and
especially infectious disease, because you can tie into hospitals and get that information from them.
Well, I know. Well, I have somebody. I have a liaison through Riverside. Well, one of the hospitals. We get our physicals from a particular. It's actually a Riverside Business Health, which is one of the hospitals that we use as far as we take personnel to. I mean, but yeah, it is. It's kind of scary having that. But the person before me had that information, and I ended up just kind of falling into it with that.
Do you let companies go out of service for PT?
No, not service.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't let them either.
See, and that's the big thing. Our guys are screaming because they can't go out of service to do PT.
We go to service for medicals. We do on the.
Well, yeah, our guys go. They come in the morning. They don't even come into work. They go get their physical, and if they're clear, everything's okay. They come back to work that day. But they feel that they should not have to do PT in service. They should be out of service. And I've done a lot of research. And everybody else's policy, they say you should be ready to take any calls in your district when you go need PT.
You're there for a reason.
That's the reason for justifying having a local facility at your station or a gym or something, as opposed to I'm going to run 5 miles out and 5 miles out.
It's hard to staff for all the crews to have PT, but reality, I mean, generally, you're there to protect the public. Right. And as part of this, we're providing you, this PT. That's part of the discussion of PT, not to exhaust them so they can't do their work that they need to do when they have to perform it or have somebody injured because of the PT. It should never be that way.
Any other questions, comments? Great. Well, thank you everybody for coming. If you could fill out the evaluations before you go, that'd be great. The panel will be around if you'd like to ask any of them any individual questions. Again, thank you for coming.